Well, hello, and welcome back to the PJH Writing Command Center. Thank you. And I am Paul John Housleben of God Bless the Keg Publishing, LLC, and I am your host for this podcast. I'm the flagship author, chief photographer, chief cook, bottle washer, radio operator at station WA2ASQ, music reviewer and critic, and do everything guy at God Bless the Keg Publishing. And I am thrilled that you are here to join us for another episode of the podcast. And I'm excited to say we are sponsored today by Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, the leader in technical consulting, facility maintenance management, and property services throughout America. If you need maintenance services, inspections, property services of any kind for your retail business, your shopping center, your corporate building, check out Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated. You can find a link on our episode webpage, www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. And how exciting is that? We actually have a sponsor. And more exciting is the fact that whenever and this is the first time I had to actually announce a sponsor, I think of A Christmas Story and my hero, Gene Shepard, the great Gene Shepard. Whiskey 2 Oscar Romeo Sierra was his amateur radio call. And he is the author and the narrator and the famous person behind that famous movie, A Christmas Story. And I love when the little kid who seeks the BB gun, the Red Ryder BB gun, and he mails away for the little orphan Annie decoder pin, and he finally gets it back after weeks and weeks and weeks of checking his mailbox, and he says, "It's a crummy commercial." So I just excitedly did a crummy commercial. and what do you think about that, crowd? A crummy commercial. So this podcast is inspired, and thank you to Reader MR. So usually on Saturday morning, I open up my emails. And the world is dictated by emails these days. It's both a curse and a blessing. Somewhere I wrote in one of my books, and I can't tell you where it is because everything's a blur now, but I wrote that the internet is humankind's best and worst invention. It makes a lot of sense. And email is a plague. And I'm going to do a podcast on the modern workplace and how it's changed over the years for an old dog like me and all the things that have come about. And the great Harry from the Adventures of Harry and Paul said one of the most profound things to me. He said, "Paulie, how the world has changed in 15 years. And that was before COVID. And how things have changed after COVID is just absolutely remarkable. But it's kind of mind-boggling and heartbreaking at the same time. But I'm going to, get deep into the trenches on the modern workplace in another podcast. But I digressed. But I got, received this email, and the reader posed a very profound question, two questions actually. And I open my emails for my primary source of income during the week constantly, but my secondary incomes, and I'm not sure what they are these days. I talk about side hustles and side jobs, and people talk about all these things nowadays. And I have plenty of side hustles and side jobs in the Adventures of Harry Paul that are based upon actual Harry and Paul adventures, carrying sofas up to fourth floors of tenements and putting TV antennas on top of convents and all the other wacky things we did to make extra money. So since I dabble in so many different things, I kind of separate my life into my primary income versus all these other jobs that I have. Some of the jobs are fun, and some of them these days become a grind. But this reader sent me an email, and I opened the emails for God Bless K Publishing on Saturday. And on Saturday, I also open up the author email. And I study them, and sometimes I answer and say thank you, or sometimes I go into a longer explanation. So that's a tip. If you want to get Paulie to respond, send it like on a Friday night, and I'll probably answer you on Saturday or Saturday afternoon. And the reader asked me, Paulie, I just finished reading Experiences, and you talk about all the things you've done in your life, which is amazing. But you also, in the one chapter, speak about how difficult writing is. And of all the things you've done, and you jackhammered holes through walls to put air conditioning systems in, and you did military operations, and you did digging ditches in the cold and bitter weather, and all these other things you've done. But of all those, writing is your most difficult thing. Why is that? And the second part was, did you ever write a story when you were positive, absolutely positive that you finished the book or the story or the piece or whatever, that it was outstanding? And I thought to myself, wow, reader MR, Mike Romeo, really has a great email. And I did answer and blah, blah, blah. But I thought I would share that on this podcast as well as the answer. And yeah, writing is the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I always say it's the most difficult because it removes parts and pieces of your soul. And yeah, jackhammering a wall, a cement block wall with a jackhammer to get an air conditioning sleeve in Ridgewood, New Jersey on a 100-degree day, and then lifting a 600-pound air conditioner and cutting a hole in the ceiling and putting a block and tackle and having to get it done by the end of the day. And that was tough. And digging ditches and all the other things I've done, security investigations and stressful situations. Have to take a sip of water here, excuse me. All difficult, but writing is amazing. It's just so emotional. And when I first started writing, I wrote in, oh my gosh, like these marathons. It was like sometimes the words couldn't come out of my fingers fast enough. And I'm not going to be the guy who says, oh, I'm the tortured artist, I'm the tortured writer, and I pace back and forth drinking scotch all night, and I'm out of my mind trying to find the words. No, I never had writer's block. I never have had writer's block. When the words come, they just come, and I type them out. And I used to write in these incredible writing marathons because I always had my primary source of income, and I would write on, at night or on Saturdays or Sundays, and particularly Saturday night, I might start at 2 p.m. and yeah, maybe some scotch is involved, maybe some Irish whiskey. And by 2 a.m, I might have written 8, 10, 12,000 words, and it's just come out of my inner being, out of my inner soul. Particularly my first novel, The Night Always Comes. It came at a difficult time in my life, and I had to have some major surgery, and I was recovering from that. And I wasn't in a good frame of mind. They had put me under anesthesia for much longer than they anticipated, and there's some side effects from that. So I was a little post-op depressed. And I had this idea. And I had written Time Bomb in the Cupboard when I was very young, and then we republished that. And then I did a Christmas book. The Christmas Tree and Other Christmas Stories. And that book went over really well. And my business partner, Lydia, her husband, Steve McMillan, who's a great Christmas fan. Nobody loves Christmas more than Steve. He helped me with the foreword. He wrote a great foreword. It was a great book. And I was sitting in limbo and recovering from the surgery, and this idea came for The Night Always Comes. It's a Harry and Paul adventure, all based around when Harry bought this fantastic Trans Am. It changed everybody's lives. In the books, it's a Trans Whizzer. I got to be careful about trademarks and things. I'm not that famous. And I wrote that book in 3 weeks, and it's 130,000 words. I wrote the draft in 3 weeks, and it just came out of me. So when you write at that intensity, yeah, it's difficult. It's not physical. It's not like, jackhammering in 100-degree days or splicing high voltage wires in manholes and then lowering the lunch down to you with a string, and you're standing in water up to your waist with mosquitoes and who knows what else is floating around in the bottom of that manhole, and you're eating a hamburger with dirty hands, and it's 4,160 volts that you have to splice to get this manufacturing plant back on the line. It's not that kind of work. It's different because, as I stated, it removes parts and pieces of your soul. And I think as a writer, when you get to 51 books like I have, and you've written, 12 million, 13 million words, you wonder where this stuff comes from. And I think about artists, the greats, music. Guys like, come to mind, like Gordon Lightfoot, or Martin Knopfler, or Johnny Cash, or Bob Dylan, or Joni Mitchell. These folks that have been around forever, Jeff Lynne. Where do they continue to get the inspiration? And I always judge upon a lifetime of work. Charles Dickens, Hemingway. Not the one-hit wonders. Not To Kill a Mockingbird. It's one novel. One novel. And I'm not downplaying the greatness of that novel, but it's one, as opposed to James Michener that put out, 1,000-word novels over a lifetime. Where does that inspiration come from? And me, myself, as a writer, I wonder how many words I have left. I often think it's a race of time. Am I going to run out of words? Or am I going to run out of my life? And so far, I'm always able to find inspiration. Some of it might not be too swift, might not be high quality. And I've written a lot of things that I was like, this is trash. I'm going to put it in a PJH vault and hold it there for another day and maybe pull it out, resurrect it, and polish it up. But inspiration can come to me from just a conversation with an individual person, or looking at a sunset or a sunrise, or looking at a circumstance or a situation, or reading an article. It just continues to come. And for that, I'm very thankful. I thank God for that. And I thank all the persons in my life that, and I said lives because I feel like I've lived 1,000 of them. And all those folks that have contributed things to me to help me along the way and provided that type of inspiration. So, Reader MR, I know I answered you via words, but I'm answering you here in audio. And I hope that helps as to why it's such a difficult profession. I think it was Charles Bukowski, and he said, my advice for a writer is don't do it. And I totally understand that. If you're doing it nowadays in this day and age of technology and, the the big six, the big five, publishing, whatever runs this world of writing, you're not going to make any money at it. You'll make a few bucks, some beer money, some wallet money, but you'll get great satisfaction. You'll touch people's lives. People write me and say, Paulie, I picked up your Christmas book and we read it, and it was a large part of our Christmas celebration. And now every Christmas Eve, we read this Christmas story. They were referring to a New Jersey Christmas carol. How can I ever put a monetary price to such a thing? Maybe I made 20 cents. Maybe I made $2. Maybe I made $5. I don't know. But I touched their lives. And every year at Christmas, they read a story that I composed. There's no price to that. There really isn't. Was it difficult? Probably. I don't remember writing a lot of the things I have written. It's just time and blurs and, so many words. And I don't like going back and reading what I wrote. I try to not read the past. Some of it I like, some of it I don't. And I think any artist is very critical of what they painted or composed or sang or wrote or whatever they do. I'm ultra critical, and I write it and I leave it. So reader MR, I hope that helps you, as opposed to jackhammering a hole in the wall that you read about in experiences. Yeah, it's a lot different. And I can remember in my early days of writing, and I was here at the Writing Command Center, and the air conditioning isn't too swift here. I remember hot summer nights at 2:00 in the morning, pacing the floor. So that's as close as I get to the tortured writer, and I had earbuds in and I'm listening to ELO, Electric Light Orchestra. Jeff Lynne just got me through some things, and I'm pacing back and forth trying to find the next piece of the puzzle to write. And I would quit at 5 a.m, sleep for a couple hours, get up Sunday morning and keep writing, keep pounding away. I try not to write like that anymore. It's not healthy. It's not good mentally or physically, but I do remember that. So I got as close to the tortured writer as possible. Now to the second part. Have I ever written anything that I knew was just outstanding? And yes, it comes to mind. And this is a fairly recent piece I wrote, and it's called A Few Beers with Jesus. And it's contained in the flash fiction piece, Flashes, Sparks, and Shorts, Flash 3. I have to date written 5 of these flash fiction books. Flash fiction being about 1,200 words or less. The sparks are like inspirational thoughts. Sometimes they're inspirational thoughts of a profound wisdom, if I have any, or somebody else contributed. And the shorts are short stories. Flashes, sparks, and shorts. It goes back to my electronic and electrical and radio days when I had a lot of flashes, sparks, and shorts. So I wrote this story late at night on a Saturday. Now I might have been into a bit of scotch. I remember it was about 10:30. And I was sitting in front of the computer and sitting in front of the laptop with my fingers on the keyboard and dabbling with a little music. And Jeff Lynne, my hero from ELO, produced a record for a gal named Regina Spektor back in 2022. And the long player that he produced was called Far. And Regina Spektor had another album called Home Before and After. So I was listening to a couple of cuts on Far, and the way the playlist goes, it dabbled into other things, and this song came up, Becoming All Alone. And Regina Spektor is a Jewish American Russian artist, musical, mostly piano. She has a great voice. She writes her own things. Not the kind of music I traditionally listen to, but she popped up in the playlist and I gave it a listen. And the opening lyric, I'm going to read it. I went walking home alone past all the bars and corner delis when I heard God call out my name. And he said, hey, let's grab a beer. It's awful late. We both are right here. And we didn't have to pay because God is God and he's revered. And I said, why doesn't it get better with time? I'm becoming all alone again. Stay, stay, stay. And I sat back in my chair. I remember pushing the pause button. And I said, wow, having a beer with God. And I turned that into a flash fiction piece. I immediately wrote it, and I wrote it in 20 minutes. It's 1,156 words, I think. And it's called A Few Beers with Jesus. And it's about two guys in a bar. Somehow I always end up in these bars. And they're both retired guys, and they've both been around this bar forever, and they're best buds, and they show up every Tuesday, I think it is. And one fellow is a widower, and his wife passed away, and the other fellow, his wife is still alive, and they meet for these beers, and they just, watch TV and have a couple beers, and one week one guy pays, and the next week the other guy pays, and they just, shoot the breeze about stuff. And the one buddy turns to his friend, and they're in their 80s now, and he says, hey, buddy, I think the guy's name is Matt. What are you going to do, if I ever pass away? Who are you going to have beers with? Who would you want to have a beer with? Another sip here. And his buddy turns to him and says, I like to have a few beers with Jesus. And his friend is floored. And the bartender is listening in, and other folks around the bar. He's like, Jesus? I didn't know you were, that religious. And the other buddy says, yeah, I'd like to have a few beers with Jesus. And then he lays out the reasons why. And I'm a religious guy. I don't wear it on my sleeve. I'm a Lutheran. And I don't go around preaching. I don't go around talking about things. It's kind of like my old man said, don't discuss money, religion, and politics. And I adhere to that. And the one friend outlays why he wants to have a few beers with Jesus. And I sat back after I finished it, and it only took me a few minutes to write it. And I said to myself, to answer you, MR, I was like, holy moly, this is a fantastic story. It came out of nowhere. And I wrote it so quick. And I had this fervent urge to share it right away. And I saved it to file, and I made a PDF, and I didn't know what to do with it. I was pacing back and forth, and now it's like 11:15 at night on Saturday, and I said, oh my gosh, I want to share this story. It's so good. And I need somebody to tell me it's as good as I think it is. And I never really had that feeling before. I had parts and pieces of stories, and I said, yeah, they're good, they're okay. But this one hit me like the old man used to say, there's nothing like a punch of reality to wake you up. And it was a punch of reality. So I had dialed up my business partner and my friend Lydia, and I know she used to, I think she still does, stay up late on Saturday when her husband and her daughter go to sleep, and it's like Lydia time, and she watches old movies and has popcorn. It's like the thing she does. And I was like, I bet Lydia's still awake. And I texted her. I said, hey, Lydia, I just wrote this story, and I think it's knockout, drag out. Are you still awake? If she was asleep, I woke her up. She answered right away. She's like, yeah, Paulie, cool. Send it to me. And I did. I whipped off the PDF, and within a few minutes, it's not that long of a story. You can read it in a few minutes. She comes back and she's like, she has this cool saying. She says, "Holy guacamole." She's like, "Paulie, that's fantastic. It's fantastic. What are you going to do with it?" And I thought about it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I would put it in a flash fiction book coming up. But I thought the story needed more. It needed something different. And the next day after I slept, I searched the internet for Christian publications, literary journals, magazines, whatever, that would publish things that are a little off the beaten path. I'm talking about having a few beers with Jesus. Yeah, Jesus turned the water into wine, but this is a little off the beaten path. And I found a publication called Heart of Flesh, a literary journal. And I put the story together and I emailed it to the editor-in-chief, and they were open for some submissions. And a couple of weeks later, it came back and they accepted the story, and we worked a deal, and it got published. And after that deal expired, I could publish it myself. And I did in that Flash number 3. So, yeah, reader MR, those are profound experiences as a writer. It's something that you write and you get done and your fingertips are actually smoking. And you're like, my gosh, I've written a lot of stuff. I'm not a rookie. But this thing, this piece, it's just inside of me. And now it's outside of me. Now it's in words. And it's really, really good. And I haven't had those experiences too much. But a few beers with Jesus, it was one of those really special stories. And maybe there's a few more inside of Paulie. I don't know. I write when I want to write now. After all these books and all these words and all these other things I do, I'm not under any pressure. I just do it as the inspiration comes. And that's the beauty of creativity. And when my mom read it, and a lot of other folks read it, but my dear mom, she came back and she said, only you, Paulie, only you could write a story about having beers with Jesus that would bring your own mother to tears. And if I never get another word of praise or another review or another inspirational push, yeah, it's my own dear mom. But for her to say that was worth $1 million. $1 million. So, MR, I thank you for your email. I thank you for the inspiration of this podcast, and all the folks gathered here, even if they are contained in this little push button. They thank you too. And I thank you. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. I'm Paul John Housleben, and you can love this podcast or dislike it or whatever. I appreciate you tuning in, and I thank you for your time and your listening. And I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey. I really don't know too much. But it's been a wonderful journey, and I appreciate everything that the listeners and the readers send to me, and keep them coming. You can contact us at godblessthekegpublishing@gmail.com, and we're on Facebook and YouTube, and you can find us. Just Google us, and my not-so-handsome face will pop up here and there. Hey, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.